From the deepest, darkest recesses of Dangerous Nerds headquarters, Keith Moncrief and Gary Kissel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keith, and that's Gary. And this is our big guest, Mr. Tom Seymour.
Tom Seymour. Tommy, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hear you, Tommy?
Howdy, everybody.
And Thomas, of course, is, as the little thing says across the screen there, he's our guest of the day, and he's a special effects and visual effects guru. And he's worked on such, well, I'm going to name my favorite thing that you worked on, which is Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang. I fucking love that movie. It's like one of my favorite films of all time.
That was a fun one.
Like, who taught you to do math? What did you do on that film?
We did all kinds of stuff. We did some boring things. Some weather and rain and snow and stuff like that. But we did a couple of kind of fun, interesting gags. We threw a dummy off the roof of the Standard Hotel into a dumpster down in an alley, and the scene toward the end where the van is racing through traffic with the coffin in the back. We built the coffin cannon that launched that coffin out of the back.
That is like one of the greatest freaking moments in cinema history, that casket coming out of the back of that ambulance.
So that was a lot of fun. Testing that was a lot of fun. Figuring out it's like, okay, it's like how much does a coffin weigh, and how much pressure do you need, and how far do we need it to go? And
well, when you built that, did you try to use a lighter wood?
It was an aluminum casket.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we had to reinforce it. We had to build a frame into it to hold a pipe that sleeved over another pipe that went into the air cannon that launched it
out there, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing, dude. That was a great film. The one, because some people make fun of the film. I actually enjoyed it, even though I don't consider it a legitimate Godzilla film. Was you got to work on the '98 Godzilla film? What was your work on that one?
Again, a little bit of everything. I was running smoke machines. We were doing a lot. I was basically on the miniature effects unit that Joe Viscosal was running, and so we were doing a lot of miniature pyro. We were doing the breakaway sections of the bridge. There's the bridge that Godzilla gets tangled up in, and then he rips all the moorings loose on the shore. Helicopter crash. I was helping with the not quite full size but really huge hydraulic Godzilla tail that we're using to wreck scale buildings. And that was big enough and powerful enough.
Yeah, because that was some of the best stuff in the film, in my opinion, was some of the reaction in the environment, the real stuff that was being done, rather than just doing special effects or visual effects. They were using more in the camera, live visual effects,
right,
on the scene,
right.
And
just to clarify, it's like my little header at the bottom of the thing. I do special effects, which more specifically would be practical or mechanical effects. So everything I do happens real time, right before your very eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So visual effects,
so a lot of
post production, CGI, composite.
Right, exactly. And that was what I was going to ask you, is to explain that, because I know it because Craig Edwards, who I've known since I was a kid, is a visual effects artist.
Oh, right.
And we grew up making films, and I learned the difference because I would do both. And in fact, if you go on IMDb, I'm listed on several Sci-Fi Channel movies, even though I never got paid a dime to work on those films. I just showed up, and I actually knew how to run air cannons. I knew how to do cleanup on the sets and set up for the next shot. And they're like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "I've been a filmmaker since I was a kid. I know all this crap." But yeah, because you worked for visual effects, you worked on The Arrival. That was that Charlie Sheen sci-fi film, which was really a good film. Heart and Souls, I don't know if I remember that one. I remember Fortress, And of course, you were on Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yes.
And that
Now,
one, you actually did visual effects.
Well, it's under the visual effects heading, because I was working for a company that was the visual effects producer, but we were doing practical effects to be composited in later. So like on The Arrival, we were doing miniatures. We did the miniature radio telescope that collapsed, and on Honey, I Blew Up the Baby, we did. We were doing helicopters and stuff like that, but we were doing a lot of motion control filming. But we were shooting real objects. We were shooting miniatures against backgrounds. We were shooting elements against black that could be composited in later. I didn't have anything to do with that but I was just part of producing the elements that were going to be put in later.
What got you started?
I'm sorry?
What got you started doing this?
Well, my favorite, the judge said it was either this or jail. So.
Oh, yeah, I had a buddy that went in the Marines for that, as well as my brother. So, but no, for real, I mean, what inspired you to get involved with that?
I'd always been, from the time I was very young.
I think we're losing connectivity here.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear anything, Keith?
No.
Fascinated by behind of movie making, even.
I was hoping we were
hello,
going to make
hello.
it. Yeah, it's not working now. God damn it.
Seeing you guys.
Can you hear us now?
I've been able to hear you the whole time. There's a little lag though on your video feed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm waiting to see if we can get it back, because I'm still getting a lot of digital breakup with you on my end. But let's try it again real quick, because I asked you how you got involved and interested in doing this.
Well, again, when I've always been fascinated by the behind the scenes aspect of movies, even from when I was just a kid, and loved reading about it and learning about it. I never really considered it a career because I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, and didn't know anybody, didn't have any idea how that world worked, and really didn't have a kind of a mental picture that that was actually a job or a career that you could do. So it wasn't until much later that I kind of stumbled into the video production world in St. Louis, where I used to live, and once I was in that, decided, okay, this is my new career path. This is what I want to do. This is what I should have always been doing.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and did that for like 3 years in St. Louis, and really decided that's what I really enjoyed and wanted to pursue. And at that point, I decided, well, if this is going to be my new career, I'm going to go where the big boys do it. So packed up all my worldly belongings into my pickup truck and drove to Los Angeles.
Nice. And that's such a common kind of beginning for a lot of people that I've known throughout my life that ended up working in film and or television. It's like that started out like in the Midwest or in the South, because I grew up in the South. And like my buddy Craig Edwards, he went from living in Fredericksburg to working on the Pee Wee Herman show, building miniatures. That was his first gig. And, for me, I just sort of always been a satellite, because I don't like Hollywood. I never have. I went there and I was like, yeah, this place is not for me. I do not like Los Angeles. And how am I going to work? And thank God, 30 years later, I can telecommute. And so now I'm working in film again.
Well, what I found funny in my career and the people I've worked with is I'd say 80% of the people met and worked with ended up in the movie business. It wasn't their goal. It's a very small percentage of people that like they went to film school and like, this is what I want to do. It's like everybody else just seemed to end up in the movie business from all kinds of other weird directions.
Right. Well, it's sort of like it's the logical conclusion. To do something else made no sense, right?
Yes. And also looking back at, all my interests and all my hobbies and everything like that, it's like everything I, was doing in my life was preparing me for, this career.
And you're pretty happy with it, I would say, because you always seem really satisfied.
I've been very fortunate, and I am very happy with the things I've worked on and the people I've met. So yeah. I have no complaints.
Because I liked your work in Criminal Minds, because I was a fan of that show. And so I was always like, ha, Thomas did that. I know he did. Back when my daughter.
It was a great experience. It was a great bunch of people to work with, and and just a really good environment. From the top down, from the producers all the way down. It was just a good place to work and a good bunch of people.
Now, were you working there when Mandy Patinkin was there?
It's not. That was before my time. I didn't start until I started toward the end of season 3, and then I came on full time on season 4. But Mandy was only there for the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I forget what's the actor's name who took his place.
Joe Montana.
Yeah, I freaking love that guy. A lot of people don't know that he's the voice of the mobster from The Simpsons.
Yes, and I must say, Joe Montana is one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet.
I'm not surprised. Anytime I've ever seen interviews, every interview I've ever seen, he's just so genuine.
Yeah.
So Tom, since you,
go ahead, Keith.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, there was a running joke between my boss and I working on Criminal Minds, because Joe, the few cast members that would come in and eat lunch in the lunchroom every day, with everybody else. And so over the course of, I worked on Criminal Minds for 10 seasons, and over the 10 seasons, I can't count the number of times I had lunch with Joe Montana, because he would come in and sit down at the table with us, and we would just talk during lunch. So the running joke between, like I said, between my boss and I was my biography, when I eventually write it, is just going to be called Lunch with Joe.
I bet he was a fun lunch companion.
So he's got so many great stories, just from the Rat Pack era of Hollywood, and and he's a great storyteller too.
Yeah, I've actually he wrote and directed a film. I think, didn't he? Let me go check that. It seems like he wrote and directed one.
Not sure about it. Maybe, he directed several episodes of Criminal Minds over the years.
Well, now, you've had the opportunity to make a lot of smaller movies over time. In fact, one of the more impressive things about you is that you've taken time out of working, real job in Hollywood to go help out friends who have made movies. What is it about that experience, even though you're working professionally in Hollywood, that you enjoy with making the smaller films with friends?
Well, that's a great question. The thing that, first off, it's who the person is. It's just like how I relate to them, and how they strike me. And kind of that's the first thing. If I like them and feel I have a connection with them. But the thing that I enjoy about doing that, and the reason that I do that, is that I'll help out and volunteer my time, is that I have a lot of respect for people that get any kind of project out of the talking phase. Because so many people talk about, one of these days I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and one of these days, and talk is cheap. But when somebody finally gets their shit together enough, marshals the forces and gets something off the ground, it's like, I'm all for supporting that, because again, I got tremendous respect for them for getting it out of the talking phase into the doing phase, and if there's something I can do to move that along, I'm happy to do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, I just want to show you real quick. He directed the film. He did not write it. It was written by David Mamet, who's, like, in my opinion, one of the best. There it is, Lake Boat. And I love that film.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's David obscure a film fan I
David
am.
Mamet's a great guy, too.
Yeah, he's like, I admire his writing so much. In fact, if you read anything I write, there's a hint of Mamet in everything. But now, what are some of the films other than that you've worked on that you enjoyed your experience? Like, I got to go back to your other projects here.
Well, you know what? Let me at least ask about, because I have to ask you about these two. Working on Jericho, because that was, again, great show. Great show, and it seemed like you had a really good time working on that one. And also, working on Dante's Peak, which I think was towards the beginning of your career out there.
It's listed as your first film.
And just the experience of working on that film, especially at the beginning. So.
With Dante, it was a pivotal moment. It was a huge, important moment in my career because up until then, working on all kinds of stuff, movies and commercials and whatever came along, and there was a gentleman named Dean Miller, who was a special effects guy, and I had worked on a little low-budget horror movie with him, obvious to Dante's Peak. And I was doing everything. I was a model maker. I was working as a grip. I was working art department. I would take any job that came along. I was working as a set carpenter at scene shops. Because I was just trying to stay alive in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you got to make your living, man.
Yeah. And I get this call out of the blue from Dean, and he said, "Hey," and he goes, "I've got." Well, actually, let me back that up a little bit because this keys into the pivotal moment theme. About the same time, I got a call from a friend of mine who was a gaffer, and he said, "Hey," and he goes, "I got a great opportunity." He goes, "I just got hired to be the gaffer." He goes, "On the miniature effects unit." He goes, "For this science fiction movie," he goes, "called Starship Troopers." He goes, "It's going to be at Sony ImageWorks." He goes, "It's probably going to be 6 months worth of work." And he goes, "I'd love to have you on as the key grip." And I'm like, "Wow, that sounds great. Thanks. I'm excited." He goes, "Okay." And he goes, "The guy you need to talk to is out of town until Monday." And he goes, "So call here. I'm going to give you his number. Call him first thing Monday morning. Time I told you to call you." And he goes, and have a conversation with him. And I'm like, "Okay, great." And it was really busy at that time in town, and he told me, he said, and he goes, "And quote your most obscene rate ever." And he goes, "And you'll probably get it." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Thanks for the hot tip." So that was probably on a Tuesday. So I'm like, all right, next Monday, I'll call this guy and lock this job. 2 days later, I get a call from this other guy, Dean Miller, and he said, "Hey, Tom," he goes, "I just got the gig." He goes, "I'm going to be the effects coordinator on the miniature effects unit of this volcano movie called Dante's Peak. So it's going to be 6 or 7 months worth of work." He goes, "I'd love to have you on my crew." So I'm like, okay, which one do I take? So, I've always been way more interested in special effects than anything else because I've been working with a lot of effects guys. And I said, "Count me in." So that was, again, a pivotal moment there. And I went on to Dante's Peak, which became 7 months of intensive special effects school. I met a lot of great people there. I got into the union through Dante's Peak. I got my Class 3 pyrotechnic license on Dante's Peak. And so that was a huge moment and a huge turning point.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, that really, like I said, that really turned the corner right there.
Wow. And about Jericho.
Then Jericho, again, I'd done a lot of work with my friend JD Street, who's also from St. Louis and also has a long history with Archon and Midwest science fiction conventions. JD and I had worked on a lot of projects together. JD got a call from a producer that we had worked with. We had done Pam Anderson's show VIP for the 5 seasons it was on. And the producer was working on this new show, a pilot for the show called Jericho. He called JD, said, "Hey, got this show. Are you interested?" JD's like, "Yeah." JD called me and he goes, "You want to work on this?" And I'm like, "Sounds great. Post-apocalyptic. Let's do it." And and again, just going into that, we were both excited about, the show itself, the premise of it, because JD and I both love the kind of post-apocalyptic genre, and we're like, this is cool. This is actually a show I'm really excited about. And it turned out to be just such an amazing, gratifying experience, because I can't really explain why it happened, but for whatever reason, all like the nicest, greatest people all came together on that show, like across the board. On the producing and the writing end, the cast, the other crew members. To date, it's like it was the greatest, grouping of people and personalities. There weren't any problem children. There weren't any assholes. Everybody was super cooperative, and we were all on the same page. It's like we're trying to make man, and it's like, and what can I do to help you? Do your job, and how do we do the best job that we can do to make the best show that we can? And everybody had that same attitude, and it made it such a pleasure to work on.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really good. I've got a slideshow going right now of you behind the scenes.
I see that in the corner. Yeah.
So these are all from, I'm assuming, Criminal Minds.
Not all of it. That's from Jericho.
Oh, is this from Jericho? Okay.
And that's Criminal Minds.
That is not Criminal Minds. That's that was from a movie called My Sister's Keeper.
Okay.
That was from a TV show.
Keith, you and I just need to shut up and let him describe.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're talking about.
Interesting story. The pictures that have a lot of fire in them. That was from a TV show called Kane that we actually went on to right after Jericho got canceled, and. Wow. Kane was basically it was like Dallas, except it revolved around a rum distillery family down in Florida, and all the intrigue and everything and shady.
I remember that. The lead actor was Jimmy Smits.
Correct. So there was a scene in there where like there's some rival family, that they had got a big beef with, there's an escalating, war between them two. And at one point, the rival family hires some guys to set Jimmy Smits's sugarcane fields on fire. So we found a sugarcane field down near San Francisco that they were willing to let us burn. So we spent 4 days down in El Centro, California, acres of sugarcane in a controlled fashion.
That's fantastic. Was it real sugarcane?
It was real sugarcane, yeah.
Yay! From a diabetic.
Oh, and interesting side note, linking back to Jericho, two of the producers from Jericho are two of the producers on this last show I was working on, The Old Man, and that's how JD and I.
Wow.
They called JD and said, JD, we got a new show. Are you in? And he goes, I'm in. And then JD called me and he said, he goes, John and Dan have a new show. He goes, what do you think? I said, I'm in if you're in.
And that's the show with the Old Man is the show with Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, I like because you have people that you prefer to work with, which is the way a lot of us are. It's like it's our all of us have our own version of the Rat Pack that we like to work and hang out with, and
sure.
So I get that and I like that, because you and he work together a lot, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So going back, what is your single best experience on a film?
Oh my gosh, single best. That's a tough one. I think one of the most kind of like personally gratifying projects I ever worked on was I worked on the HBO series From the Earth to the Moon.
Love that.
Yes.
Yes.
And I've always been a big space geek from the time I was a little kid. So to work on that show and talk to some of the people, that were actually there and having access to, just that history was, aside from just being a cool show and doing a lot of fun stuff, it was just really gratifying to me to be kind of part of that because it was
it was a really smart crew as well. Because were you there when they figured out how to do the 1/3 of the Earth's gravity was to use balloons?
I wasn't there for that, but I remember the discussions. Again, on that, I was working on the miniature effects unit, so I wasn't on first unit principal photography.
That's another question I have. Do you like building miniatures?
I do. That was never really a big thing for me when I was a kid. It's like I built models and I did enjoy it, but I was never a really good model maker. So in the times that I was working in the miniature effects realm, I have a fairly wide skill set. So it's like I was never really good at the super geeky, detailed model making, but I was good at building bigger things, so there was always a place, for that. There was a lot of times, we're like, this miniature landscape, and it has to be on a platform that's 60 feet wide and 30 feet deep, and all at the, in the foreground and 8 feet tall in the background. And I'm like, I'll build that. Guys go in and go to town and do what they do best.
Right. You're sort of like Horseshack when you hear the thing you want to build. Ooh, pick me. Yeah, see that guy right there?
What's that?
See that model back there?
I see the eagle on the wall, yeah.
Yeah, that was built by Brian Ray in Springfield. He's a prop builder, and that's from scratch. That's like 3 feet long. It's huge. And
wow.
And you wouldn't believe, like the rockets. I was the one who actually added those per his instructions. Those are wine glasses, plastic disposable wine glasses.
Nice.
That I primed up and then spray painted with metallic metal, and it worked out. I ended up painting the whole thing because originally when he gave it to me, it was all prime gray.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful gift. I will cherish that till I die, which hopefully won't be during this virus. But like best experiences.
Yeah. Another very gratifying thing that I've worked on, and it's kind of peripheral to the movie business. And this was probably 10 years ago at this point, maybe longer. I had the opportunity. I did this on and off for a year and a half, 2 years, because it wasn't a full-time thing. But myself and a lot of other movie special effects people, pyrotechnicians, we were working for the United States Marine Corps, and we were doing pyrotechnic booby traps for new recruit training, because there's like 3 different Marine bases in the Los Angeles, Southern California area that have Iraqi villages in them.
Wow.
And so we were brought on board to set up pyrotechnic booby traps for the new recruits. They'd send them on these missions.
I remember you telling me about this before.
And that was a really fascinating thing to be a part of. And when we were first brought on, I asked the question, and I said, kind of what are we doing here? What's the point of all this? And B, why are we here? Because certainly you've got people, you have explosive ordnance people, already in-house. Why are you bringing us on? And what the instructor told me was a fascinating statistic. He said that statistically, new recruits, the first time they enter a combat situation, a hostile encounter, with the enemy, the first time they have a 65% chance of being killed or seriously injured. And if they make it past that, the second time they encounter a combat situation, that risk goes down to about 15%. And he said, what they found is what gets them killed or gets them hurt is the first time, shit starts to really happen, they freeze up because it's just a sensory overload, because there's kind of 3 reactions. There's fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of people just freeze. And he said, he goes, what we want to do is, we want to raise the stress level, of the training. He goes, we're never going to completely recreate it. He goes, but the more we can stress them out in the training field, he goes, the better prepared they'll be, when they actually encounter it for real. And he said, and he goes, yeah, we have explosives people. And he goes, their job is to really blow stuff up and to really kill people. He goes, we obviously don't want to kill our new recruits. He goes, that's what you guys do better than what our guys do. And we're like, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, it was really the purpose when I was in the military of any live fire training was to get us used to things and not underreact or overreact to them.
Right. So, that was again, very gratifying that I was able to use skills that I had in the movie business, take it into another realm, and hopefully, save some lives. Hopefully that putting these guys through that increases their chances of coming out of it alive on the other end. So,
and it does. And I, for one, am grateful for any of that stuff that guys like you did when I was in. And because it does, it saves lives. Anytime you can prepare a soldier for what it's going to be like so they know how to react, you're going to save a life. Yeah. So that's awesome. And, when you and I first met, I remember you telling me about that.
That's probably I was in the middle of doing that at that time.
Yeah, it's like, because that's some cool shit right there, my friend.
Yeah.
And I know that Fort Lewis, right outside Fort Lewis, is where one of those Iraqi villages was. Is that one that you went to? Mm-hmm. Up in Washington? I think it's Walla Walla, Washington.
Never went up there. Everything I did was local to here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, Tom, you are always stressing safety, and I know you've been trained to handle different situations, medical situations, any accidents that occur on set. Tell me about that part of your training in relation to the rest of the job that you do.
Well, that was something that I did on my own. I did it as part of what I do at work, but mainly, I did that on my own. It's like on a movie set, we usually have a medic on any TV show or movie, and that's usually an emergency medical technician or a paramedic that's just on the production staff. They're there every day, and it's just their job to take care of injuries and keep people healthy and whatnot. That's a job unto itself. But it was just something that I'd always kind of been interested in. I'd taken some first aid, Red Cross courses, and I talked to a friend who was a paramedic, and I said, I said, I have the feeling, I said, that there's a space between what I would learn at the Red Cross first aid class and when the ambulance shows up. And I said, where do I learn that part? And she said, well, she goes, then you'd want to take, emergency medical training or EMT training. He goes,
EMTI for being a proper first responder is always highly recommended. So,
I figured it was just interesting personally. But it was like between, remote locations where we work, unusual things that we do. I like to camp and backpack and go out in the outdoors. I've been going to Burning Man for years and years and years. That's a remote location. And it's just like, I'd like to know more and to be able to help if the wheels come off. So like I said, I just kind of took that on my own, and it's really got nothing to do with my job. It's just another thing I have in my back pocket just in case. But I always make it a point on any job since I've done this, is I always seek out the medic, and introduce myself and just say, hey, look, I'm an EMT as well. It's like, it's not what I do every day. I said, but if you get in a bind or you need another pair of hands, call me on the radio.
You ever do a semi-occlusive dressing?
Right.
It's like I sit down because I was an EMTI first, and when I became a combat medic, that was what you're trained as, really, basically, and you challenge out during training to be an EMTI. And by the end of it, I was a nurse, and I got bored with that, and I became a paramedic instead, because that's a lot more high-speed, low-drag shit right there.
Right.
But I love sitting around with EMTs, and especially with fire rescue, the EMTs that work for the fire department, and I would throw out, so how do you do a semi-occlusive dressing? Know how to do that? And they'll go,
Tape it on 3 sides.
You have a patient with distended veins in their neck, and they're having difficulty breathing. Do you lay them flat or sit them up? And I loved it if somebody answered wrong, and I'm like, you just killed him.
Right.
So now you are first of all, you are a fascinating individual. I've told you.
Stop overblowing it. He's okay.
Fooled you again.
No, I agree with Keith. When he said, suggested bringing you on, I was like, oh, hell yeah. We need to get him on there. It's like, we actually both know him. So, hell yeah. And I've said time and time again, we could probably fill an entire year, one interview a week, with just our friends.
Right.
Because of all the people that we've known because of what we do. Either people we work with or people we've met through the cons.
And there's a bunch of stories out there.
And I'm trying to get Shane on here. Shane. I swear to God, I just want to sneak into his house and give him one of those beatings while he's asleep with a soap bar and a sock, and then run out of the house. Because he tells me, well, how would we do it would we have to do it with a camera? Because I don't have a camera. And I'm like, you got to go out of your way today to own all the pieces of equipment you have and not have a web camera.
Yeah, come on.
Shane Moore, shame on you. Josh Becker, the film director, we're going to get him on. Keith has to send him a friggin' web camera. I'm like, you're a film director. He goes, well, I've got a DSLR. I don't know how to hook it up to my computer. And I'm like, what use are you? And then Keith goes, I'll send him my camera. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the one I gave Keith. So I can make sure he had a good camera, but his cameras work fine. And so now we're going to put some use out of that. But you, thank God, have a webcam. You got shitty internet, but you've got a fucking camera. And that's why I'm a dick. That's why I'm a dick, because I say those things.
But we can believe in you.
I'm like Santa or anti-Santa. I'm Krampus. Go ahead, Keith. Ask a question. Come on, man. You're supposed to be holding the show together. What the fuck?
Sorry.
You're the pro. I'm the asshole sidekick. Hi, I'm Goofy. I say funny fucking shit. Come on, say something. Get the show going here. You're leaving him hanging.
I'm sorry.
Stop laughing.
I'm sorry. Anyway, seriously, you have a lot of hobbies. You've done a lot of things. You've been a driver. You've found yourself hiking and going different places. And I think you even once said that you went to China for a film.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, what film was that, and what was that like?
That would go into one of those, in that category of interesting, gratifying, most fun things I've ever done on a film set. It was a movie called Pavilion of Women.
Mm-hmm.
It was based on a Pearl S. Buck novel, and it was a joint venture between Beijing Filmworks and Universal Studios. And the premise of the movie was there was a woman. It all took place in China, and there was a woman who runs an orphanage, and this is like in the 1940s, and near Nanking. And this woman runs an orphanage, and a Jesuit missionary comes to teach at her orphanage, and of course they fall in love and they have a forbidden romance. Against the backdrop of the Japanese invading Manchuria in the 40s.
Wow.
And so the reason myself and my two colleagues ended up on this movie was it was going to be all Chinese cast and crew, but they cast Willem Dafoe as the Jesuit missionary. And basically Universal's legal department said, well, if Willem Dafoe is going to be there and there's going to be explosions going off and buildings on fire and he's supposed to get shot at one point, it's like, we'd really like an American special effects crew there supervising all that. So that's how, and the person that, my boss on that, he had worked with a producer on another show, another movie in Romania a couple of years before that, who was on this movie. And he said, hey, he goes, how would you like to come to China, and work on this movie? And he's like, okay, great. So
Cool.
that was, it was a great experience. A lot of fun, high adventure. It was fascinating. It was frustrating, but great overall. Because it was just we were in a different country, different culture. We had language barriers, we had cultural barriers, and we managed to get through all of it. And but there was some really frustrating, aggravating, maddening moments, and there was a lot of just hilarious moments too, of just trying to make things happen and learn how things work. And
Once in a lifetime experience.
Definitely a once in a lifetime experience. Like I said, just great experience. All the way around. Met some great people, and had some crazy great adventures.
That seems to be the sum of what you get yourself into, is these crazy great adventures.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny. Originally when they contacted my boss, his name's Hutch. He said, he goes, great. He goes, I'd love to do this. It sounds really exciting. He goes, I have two guys I'd like to bring with me. And they said, well, and it's like, we were hoping we could just bring you and then you could use local people. And he's like, well, he goes, I'm a little hesitant to do that. So they kind of argued back and forth, and they looked at the schedule and they said, okay, look, Hutch, in the first week of shooting, he goes, there's like this one like building on fire. And he goes, let's see how that goes. And he goes, because all the big battle stuff doesn't happen till the end of the schedule. And Hutch is a pretty easygoing guy. And he goes, all right, we'll give that a try. So we helped Hutch pack everything up and ship it off to China. So they go to shoot this one scene, and it was this building on fire. And Hutch has, a bunch of local guys, and whose mastery of English was varied, and and there were people that were translators there, and there was people that spoke English, but again, there's terminology, there's nuances, there's a lot of things that could get lost in translation. So, needless to say, they did this whole building on fire scene, and it was a near catastrophe, just because of communication problems. When they got through the scene, they yelled cut, everything was okay, everybody was safe, but my boss, Hutch, was furious, and he doesn't get furious very often. So he just went storming toward the director and the producers, over at Video Village, just
like
ready
storming like he's going to beat somebody's ass?
Yeah, he was hot, and like I said, he didn't lose his temper very often, but he was going, ready to go guns blazing, and he just went stalking up to the to Video Village, and they're all standing there like that. And before he could open his mouth, the one producer looks at him and he goes, Hutch, he goes, bring your guys over here. Get them here as quick as you can. And he was like, okay. Because they saw what almost went horribly wrong. And it's like, okay, we get it now.
Wow. It's like, I like guys like that are ready to kill for their people.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy you want in charge of you. That's ready to kill for you.
Yes.
But
one of the greatest things that my friend JD ever said was, we were working on a show one time, and one of our guys got into a disagreement, which escalated into an argument. Which escalated to a very heated argument and name calling with one of the construction guys, and. So JD kind of waded into the middle of it, said, all right, everybody just chill out. Let's figure out what's going on here. They sorted out what the problem was. And, it's like, okay, let's, problem solved, moving on. Right after that, JD called everybody on our crew into the trailer, and he goes, okay, new policy. He goes, I'm the only one who gets mad. He goes, I do it really well. He goes, nobody else gets mad. He goes, got a problem? He goes, come see me. Let me handle it. He goes, nobody yells. Nobody gets into a fight. He goes, I'm the only one who gets mad. And we're like, okay.
That freaking works. I tell you. I used to tell
JD is cool. JD is a cool guy.
I like that mindset, because like even when I was in the Army, my senior NCOs, as well as all the squad leaders I worked with, because there were always 4 squad leaders per platoon. And each one of us squad leaders were always partners with the other squad leaders. We talked. And we all had a basic rule in our company. Do not take punishment into your own hand. If you feel a soldier's dragging ass, we'll do the hands-on training. You don't do that. That's our job. And hands-on training, you know what that means. That means someone's about to get their ass beat. We're going to go out to the tool shed. We're going to just talk for a minute. Then you hear shit rustling around, and somebody comes out with a bloody lip going, I fell down the stairs, like an abused wife. And I'm not making light of the abuse. I'm not. I'm just saying that's what they look like, Yeah. And then they'd use the same excuse. I fell off my skateboard. But that's the kind of people you want in charge because of you when you're working, because there's nothing worse than when you're working on a crew of any kind. And I know this is true even in film or television, where you've got someone that's ahead of you that you just feel like they're concerned about is their own ass. And am I going to have a job next week? You don't know whether you can trust people. And that is why we tend to gravitate towards people we know and trust and like working with them more than not, because we have certain people we trust that we like to work with. And I know that has to translate into what you do.
in our industry, it's like, we work long hours in difficult circumstances, doing unusual, difficult things. So, the last thing you want is unpleasant people that you can't trust around you, because, what I'm fond of saying, it's like what we do is hard enough under the best of conditions, and it's conditions.
Right. Exactly. So we're getting close to our hour wrap up. So let's talk about some stuff that you want to talk about. What do you got on the horizon, mister?
Well, like everybody else, I'm just waiting to kind of see what the future holds as the current crisis,
If we're going to survive this,
unfolds, right? Because basically, all of TV and movie production is shut down right now. So there's nothing happening. So we're all just waiting to see, when we go back to work. The show I was on, we kind of shut down, in mid-stride. We still have 4 more episodes to shoot. So we have to see. And interestingly enough, those 4 episodes we're going to shoot in Morocco, and the plug got pulled on that early on. So now,
because of the virus, right?
Because of the virus, and so there's a whole slew of questions there. It's like, okay, once this crisis pass and people go back to work, it's like, are we going to Morocco? Are we going someplace else? I would say it's probably unlikely that they want to take people out of the country even after things, kind of get semi back to normal.
It's going to be very careful going early on.
Yes.
We might not see a lot of overseas production start until closer towards the latter part of the year. Because they're still working on films like James Bond. What was the other one that pulled the plug for a while, Keith? What was another big one? They were shooting overseas, because I know Bond was one.
Well, Bond
Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible.
Yeah, Mission Impossible is the one that needs to complete. It's
still
got
it's
a lot
the
of
one that
filming
pulled
to
the
do.
plug. I got him twisted in my head. It's Mission Impossible that pulled the plug temporarily, and rightly so, because Italy, of all the European countries, seems to be the one that got hit the worst.
Yeah,
and that's because it's a port country. Port countries are going to get hit the worst, and that's why it always surprises me when you see like England just going, "It's jolly good, keep coming, everybody, come on in, that way, bring your bananas."
right.
Right, cheerio. Keep the stiff upper lip and all, right? Oh, I wonder. I guess I got a bit of a cold from this spring zephyr.
So yeah, it's like everybody, we're just waiting to see, what's going to happen, and when we go. I've been very fortunate. I've been busy since Criminal Minds happened. So I'm okay. I know in my business, along with other people that are really hurting, and it's gonna, it'll be worse for them, as if this goes on for, another couple of months. I feel bad for them. And, in terms of project, waiting for things to start up again, I'm also part of. There's a Burning Man festival, the large one that happens out in Nevada. A lot of satellite events. They're called Burning Man Regionals, and they happen all over the country and all over the world all year round. Los Angeles has its own regional that I'm part of. I do the fire safety supervisor 2 weeks ago. So I had to postpone that. So it's kind of on the horizon. It's like, all right, when do we feel it's safe, do this event, and over this year. We may just take this year off and do it next year. So, so everything's just kind of on hold right now in terms of projects. I'm just trying to use this time as best I can. I've, catching up on projects and, pursuing things that was like, yeah, I'll do that one. Well, this is one of those things. Right now I'm working on getting my ham radio license because that's been on my to-do list for like 5 years.
Wow. Well, good luck.
What are you gonna? Wait a minute. What are you gonna do with that? The
It's
ham
just
radio license.
It's just one of those things I've always been in and wanted to know more about, and I found out that there's a lot of amateur ham radio clubs that do volunteer work during disasters and emergency situations and helping to relay information, communications breakdown.
And so you can occasionally fuck with teenagers that get their radio going and go, "Where's my candy cane?" Of course, that's a horror movie joke, and only if you love horror movies will you get that joke.
Right. So that's again, I was trying to use my time constructively right now, to catch up and do those those things where I was like, I
got to tell you, you're stuck at home, self-isolating.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exactly the best time to catch up with the reading. I've been doing my new comic book. Not to mention, I've just put in tons of hours on porn.
Yeah. It's important.
Well, it kind of sucks. I really haven't because the stepdaughter's been home the whole time. So that means no adult entertainment time for me. So it's like until she goes back to school or goes to grandma's, I'm on G-rated to PG-rated TV.
Oh, Disney Plus.
Yeah, a lot of Disney Plus, and she watches the crap out of some of the. Now, I'm surprised at some of the stuff because she's 13 now, but her mom lets her watch certain things that I wouldn't let Zoe watch at 13. But she's a really sharp kid, but she watches a lot of the anime on Netflix, and some of that stuff's got dirty language. It's titillation animation. I'm like, but that's fine. Deanna feels that she's old enough for it. She is. Zoe, I think I was overly protective with her in a lot of ways. You know how I was, Keith. You saw it. You saw how I was with her.
I did.
I threatened somebody at VisionCon. I threatened a kid at VisionCon. He walked past my daughter. She was wearing her Harley Quinn outfit. She's on the stairs, and he's like, "Check the ass out on that one." And I grabbed him by the arm, and both him and his friend turned to look at me, and I know they shit their pants. I said, "That girl's 13 years old. I will kill you. You do that again." And I saw them walking around later. They avoided me because I was a guest of honor again that year, and they avoided my table. They went, "Oh, let's hit that one player." That guy's a psycho. I was way overprotective of my girl.
One of my favorite lines from the movie Clueless. One of my favorite lines from the movie Clueless. Daniel Hadid, young man picking up his daughter, and he goes, "I have a 45 and a shovel, and I don't think he'll miss you." I told this one boy when Zoe was like 7 that had a crush on her, and he was like 11. And I said, "You're a good kid. It'd really suck if you just sort of disappeared one day. It'd just be awful." And he looked at me funny, and I said, "Did I ever tell you that in the military, that was one of the things we were trained to do is dispose of bodies? So, they would never make a stink. Nobody would ever find them. I was trained to do that." 11-year-old kid, I'm threatening this kid very politely. "Don't fuck with my kid. Don't fuck with my kid. I will make you disappear." And like all my friends would post like, these memes with, "I'm a dad with a shotgun." No, I'm a dad with a knife. Be more afraid of me. I said, if you're within 10 feet of me, you're in trouble. So one thing I would like to say, just to kind of wrap up.
Yeah, man.
Is obviously, we all have, we have kind of shared background and interests, and we're all geeks and we're all nerds, at heart, and that has never changed. But I like to feel that I'm in a unique position in the work that I do and the people that I meet to represent the nerds and the geeks out there, because I stick my neck out sometimes, on set when I'm meeting people, because I feel it's my responsibility, when I meet somebody cool from a movie, and it's just like, and I quote some obscure reference to them, even though it's going to kind of make me look like an idiot, but it's like, I feel it's my responsibility. It's like, I gotta represent us.
No, I think that's actually really honorable when you do that. And I think actors really, in particular, like it when you reference something obscure.
Yes.
Not the clear, obvious stuff. Like Mark Hamill, when I met him the first time, what did I say? Corvette Summer was one of my favorite films as a kid. And Star Wars is okay, too.
Yeah.
But Corvette Summer was freaking awesome, dude.
Funny you mentioned.
What was that?
It's funny you mentioned Mark Hamill. It's like I've worked with Mark on 3 different occasions, and they've all been fairly obscure things. The first time I ever met him was on the movie Guyver.
I love that movie, dude. I love that movie, dude.
Yeah.
You worked on that? What'd you do on that?
It was my very first movie. First movie ever.
What did you do?
And I was working as a grip on that.
I love that. It's got J.J. Walker in it as a human and a monster. I love that freaking movie, dude. It is such a weird, quirky, but fun freaking film. And he uses Aikido, which is a martial art form that I studied. And one of the 3 that I studied. And I love that he used that in there. God.
So, yeah, I met Mark on the Guyver, and then he was on an episode of VIP. And he was on an episode of Criminal Minds, and so each time I've encountered him, it's like, we've worked before.
He was on Criminal Minds. Did I miss an episode?
He was, yeah.
What did he play on there?
He was a murderer, a serial killer, but he was impersonating an FBI agent.
What season is that? I missed this.
I'd have to look it up, because they all blur together after a while.
I'm gonna look it up then.
Okay.
Mark Hamill.
Then let me ask. You've worked with Mark Hamill 3 times.
Yes.
You've at least worked on 2 Bruce Willis movies. You've worked.
There it is.
Yeah, because you worked on. You've worked on Armageddon. And you worked on the movie that he more or less had mainly a cameo in, which was it sucks getting old.
We get those brain farts.
I did work on work on the 3rd Die Hard movie.
I love that. Was a good one too. By the way, your video is coming in clear now at the end of the show.
Of course.
I love irony. But what was your question going to be, Keith?
Well, I mean, you get around to, as you were intimating before, you're able to meet and see a lot of really fascinating actors. Have there ever been any producers that you've been gobsmacked over to have worked with? I mean, working with someone like Jerry Bruckheimer, would probably stop me in my tracks. But for you, I mean, have you ever run into any producers that have just completely bowled you over?
A lot of the big budget movies, like the Jerry Bruckheimers and stuff like that, I have very little interaction with. It's like I kind of see the results of their leadership and whatnot, but I generally don't have a lot of interaction. It's more on the smaller things, the TV shows, where the producers are more hands-on and on set a lot, and and I've met a lot of great guys, and women that have been in that position.
Wow.
I just messaged you, Keith.
Oh,
you need to fix your mic.
Sorry. Or
Here's
Couldn't be
here's one of my favorite stories related to what I was just talking about. I was working on I think it was the first season of the show Entourage, and there was a subplot on Entourage where the main character was being cast in the James Cameron Aquaman movie. That was within the context of the show, and that played out over several seasons while they were negotiating this whole thing. And there was this scene that took place in a steam room where like all the characters are in the steam room and they're talking about this project. And I'm in there just doing steam, making steam and whatnot, and dripping water from the ceiling. And so in the scene, his agent is trying to convince him to do this movie. He goes, I know. He goes, it's a comic book movie, but it's going to be huge. It's James Cameron. He goes, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And he's like, I don't know, man. It's a comic book movie. And he goes, I got the script right here. He goes, listen to this opening description, and this is exactly what they read. This was in the script on the show Entourage. As the guy said, Jeremy Piven goes, and he goes, Oliver Queen, a.k.a. Aquaman, stands on a rocky peak, and he goes, as the waves crash, and he goes, and then he leaps out into the water, disappearing under the waves, and he goes, how fucking cool is that? Like that. And when they're rehearsing this scene, I'm sitting there, and I'm like going, do I say anything? Do I say anything?
That's not Oliver Queen.
So I raised my hand, and the director goes, yeah, Tom. And I'm like, I said, I just feel I had to bring this up. And I said, Oliver Queen is not Aquaman's secret identity. I said, his secret identity is Arthur Curry. And I said, Oliver Queen is Green Arrow.
That's right.
So now I've got 70 people on a movie TV crew staring at me.
But I'll tell you what, you saved the day, didn't you?
He turns to his assistant and he goes, is that right? And so the guy gets on his laptop and he goes, no, he's right. He goes, that's wrong in the script. And he goes, well, let's change that shit then.
There you go, Tom. You saved the freaking day for the nerds.
That's the way to end the show. You saving the day.
And ladies and gentlemen, I am Gary. That is Keith in the middle. And this is a reverse Oreo cookie. The other end is Thomas Seymour, special effects god. And we are Pop Culture Minefield. And you know what? We're the fuck out of here.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Remember, you can find us at Pop Culture Minefield on both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again.
Y'all come back now, you hear?